Good morning. Reading today is from Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 30 and 36 to 43. Jesus put before the crowd another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out his kingdom all causes of sin and evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." Lord, may we have eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts that seek to follow.
Thanks, Paul. Gail just said to me as we whispered to say good luck after that reading, and as I was walking up, I was thinking I might offer it. Does anyone else who want to preach on this today? It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one. And I know there's a few faces who I don't really know this morning, people who are new or visiting or whatever, and you've come on the morning when the theme or the reading's about is you're about to learn about what's called theodicy. Theodicy. It's kind of like this sense of how do we understand God in the midst of suffering and in the midst of evil, in the face of evil. I didn't pick today's passage in the sense that I'm following along with the lectionary, and this follows on from last week's reading, and we're working our way through the book of Matthew, and Matthew this week, as we get to this reading, it's a very interesting reading. It's a passage that only turns up in the book of Matthew. Now, if you're not a regular here, if you are, you'll know I say this regularly to remind us all that there are 4 Gospels, and John's out there, right? The Gospel of John is out on its own. We think that Matthew and Luke were written with the book of Mark in front of them, and then there's this other source, this thing we call Q, which has got bits that are in common to Matthew and to Luke, but we don't have that document, but they've got things that are in common that aren't in the book of Mark. And then they've got their own material. And this is a thing that's only in Matthew. It's not anywhere else in the other 3 Gospels, the other 2 Gospels, the other 2 synoptic Gospels. So it's a passage we need to pay a little bit of attention to because the author of Matthew's landed it in there for a particular reason or a particular purpose. Anyway, following on from last week, the crowds have gathered. They've come from everywhere. People are hopeful. People are knowing in Jesus' time there's this sense of oppression. There's this. Ron sent me an email during the week and using a quote from Julius Caesar. Is that right? Yeah, which was basically. Can you say it for me in the.
Whiny, weedy, weedy.
Say it again, please.
Whiny, weedy, weedy.
Okay, so I won't be able to repeat that, but you'll know that in English, you'll know it's. I came, I saw, I conquered. Right? I came, I saw, I conquered. And the Jewish people and the people of Israel were stuck in the middle of all that. The Romans had come, they'd seen, they'd conquered, and they were oppressing. And you won't ever understand the message of Jesus if we don't understand that part of it first. Because Jesus is often preaching into the face of evil oppressing. So last week we heard the parable of the good seed, and this follows directly on. Jesus again in Matthew's gospel picks up this theme of the good seed, having been just scattered everywhere. That God, the gracious, generous, hopeful sower, just throws seed, casts seed everywhere. The seed of hope, the seed of love, anywhere and everywhere. And God isn't so much concerned with where it lands, but that it lands somewhere. That it continues to be cast. And so this week, Jesus digs a little deeper into the same kind of metaphor of the seed. Now, it raises, and Jesus, I think, is addressing, and I think often Jesus, we don't ever get the questions so much, we just get Jesus' teaching, but I rather suspect that Jesus often is responsive teaching. He's heard the questions and he thinks, okay, well, here's where people are itching. This is where I'll preach from, or this is where I'll teach from. And so, and this week what we get is this, in this little parable, this continuation of his teaching, is this sense that he's sharing with us again the nature of God in the face of the nature of evil. I just noted, I'd missed it all week. But when it was read out by Paula, it kind of struck me. The parable starts with the sense, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. I find that it just struck me, and I almost want to preach from that space, but I won't let it hijack what I want to say. But there's this sense in which Jesus is saying evil isn't it like, why didn't Jesus just say this is what earth is like? That evil exists. Now, I'm not saying that evil exists in heaven, but it helps me to understand that when Jesus is praying, when Jesus teaches, and we'll have it later on, the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. That Jesus is trying to offer a heavenly understanding of how to deal with the ways of earth, so that the two might look quite similar. It's not that we have one experience here and a different experience there. There's this hope when Jesus came that we were going to experience something on earth that looks a bit like heaven. And one of the things we have to address as people of faith, we have to understand is that evil and good coexist in this experience here. And that the kingdom of heaven has got something to offer into that. So I rather suspect one of the questions that might have been sitting with some of the crowd, and I know it sits with people, you and I, today, is why does the evil exist? Why does God allow evil to exist? If God is all-powerful and all-knowing and all good, then why is evil allowed sometimes to prevail? If God is all-powerful and all good, why doesn't God just snuff evil out? That makes a whole lot of sense. Does it make sense to you? Kind of makes sense to me. Why doesn't God just deal with evil that way? Bang, clap, gone, snap, finished. There'll be no more evil. And for those of us who live our lives in absolutes, where there's a straight answer, a black and white yes or no to everything, that will be a great question. But the parable that Jesus tells and the answer that Jesus is giving will be unsatisfactory to you if that's the way you understand the world or want the world to work. And in some ways, I just want to challenge you a little bit because here's the thing. If you think you've got a better answer than God about how to deal with evil, because we're watching how God deals with evil all around us. It coexists with us. That's what this parable's about. Evil coexists alongside good. And if you like what Jesus is trying to say, and what is good meant to do in the midst of that, that's what Jesus is addressing. Now, if you think you've got a better answer than God than that, if you think you've got a better answer than Jesus about that, then you and I have got a theological difference because you clearly think you're God. You clearly think you're the highest order of intellect in the universe if you've got a better answer than God. So, was that too brazen? I don't know. And I've had to deal with that myself. There's a number of things in my own life where I've had to say, you know what? I don't have the best answer here, probably. I don't understand the answer, but I have to trust that my answer is not the best one. I'm not trying here to shut down intellect or reason. I'm not trying to shut down questions or doubts or skepticism. I think it's okay to ask the question, why does evil exist? I think it's okay to ask the question, why doesn't God snuff it out? They're fair questions. But to get caught in that place and to reject an answer to what do we do in the meanwhile, I think that's where life kind of loses. I think that's where the sense of abundant life will get lost in your life if that's where you get stuck, because you'll never get a satisfactory answer to it. I don't think you will anyway. The parable we get starts from the place, just that's the way it is. We have to accept that evil coexists with good. And the parable is trying to address, what do we do with that? What do we do now? I suppose I just want to start, I just want to address a couple of things along the way before I get to a conclusion, and that is this, that what do we learn about evil from this passage? And the first thing is that evil is real. And I've talked about this before, but sometimes we lose the word evil in the scriptures because we just lump it in as sin. And we think that everything is evil. But it's not. Because the word in the Greek for sin, it's like the word love. There's about 7 different words for the word love in the Greek, and we just lump them all in and call them love. And we're meant to know when we use the word love, by the context we're using the sentence, what the different meaning of love is. Is it romantic love? Is it brotherly love or sisterly love? Is it fellowship love? Is it, emotional love? You work out on the context of when you use a sentence. We're not good at it when it comes to sin. The word sin in the Greek has about 6 or 7 different meanings. Sometimes, and the most time, it's just used as you're missing the mark. You're kind of aiming to do all right, but you don't get it right. A word you've said hurt somebody else, you didn't mean it to. You've lost your way in life. You've said things, done things that later on you regret that have been hurtful, or things have happened to you. That's kind of missing the mark. Evil has other words. Words like scandalise, which is about using your power one over the other. And there are other words as well, which I could go through, but I won't. But the idea of this is that this is the sense, evil has intent. That's That's evil. As I've said before, and I use this metaphor, hamartia, missing the mark, is an archery term. It kind of means you're going for the target and you miss the target. You don't get the bullseye. You might end up on the white patch of the board, or you might have hit the field behind. Evil is when you take your bow and arrow and point it at somebody else. It's got intent. And the intent isn't to aim for good. The intent is to do damage, or to just recklessly do what works for me. I don't care about the damage that does to you. That's evil. That word often gets translated as sin as well in the scriptures, and I think that's a misreading of it. So Jesus is saying evil is real. It happens. And you and I will know there'll be times in our lives when we will have encountered evil. Sometimes it's individual stuff going on. Sometimes it's communal, where a group of people have worked against us, or we've watched it happen to others. Sometimes it's global. Greed is evil. Wealth hoarding is evil. Destroying the environment is evil. There's no other way to say it. And denying that it's happening is evil. It's just straight out evil. It says, I don't care. Evil is real. It exists alongside good. It has its own particular power. And it's kind of like the Gestalt principle, like the sum is more than the total is more than the sum of the parts. Evil has its own ability to kind of work like a flywheel and grow its own energy and power. The thing we learn about evil from the passage today is that it is an interloper. It works its way in, and it's like an imposter sometimes. It looks like good sometimes, but then shows its face later. But it's an interloper. It's not the way things are designed to be. It's not the best way for things to be to allow evil just to flourish. And it's interesting in this passage that the parable doesn't say there's a field of wheat and a field of good seed and a field of weeds. They're mixed in together. Evil is not what we're designed for. It's not the way God intended or God intends. The other thing about evil, and this again, I come back to what's probably unsatisfactory for many of you, is that evil will always be present. And God is not going to deal with it ultimately. God's not going to conclude evil this side of the grave. So do we just give up? Do we just surrender to that? Do we just let evil have its way, either in our lives or around us or in our world? Matthew's community, the author of Matthew is writing to a community of people who are under siege. And I rather suspect this parable makes his book because the message of it was strong for his community. And I like it as a parable because I think it has a strength for our community. Not everyone's going to get this. Not everyone's going to understand this stuff. Not everyone's going to try and put into practice what I'm about to say and share that I think Jesus is saying to us. And I think the thing is that Jesus is trying to say to the crowd, don't give up. Evil may seem big. Evil may seem powerful. Evil may seem intentionally targeted at you or at those you love. Don't give up. Don't give in to it. Don't become complacent. That's what I understand Jesus to be saying here. Jesus says in the parable, let the weeds grow amongst the good seed. The good seed is expected, the good plants are expected to continue to grow in the parable. And in some ways, that's what our faith is about. It's about how do we remain faithful when that around us would strangle us, when that around us would consume us. And I rather suspect that Jesus expects us or is seeking for us. God is seeking for us. And in many ways, our world needs us to resist evil. And I don't just mean whether I'm going to smoke or not, or have a drink on Friday, drink too much on Friday night. I mean, are we going to stand in the face of evil? And I think this is how we confront evil, how we stay strong. Are we prepared to know evil from good? Are we prepared to name it? Where evil is intentionally acting and damaging people. Are we prepared to confront it? The systems of injustice in our world that see many people in the world starving, as an example, while others of us dine out. Are we prepared to protect others from it? Are we prepared to try and grow strong so that other good seed around us might survive too? Other good plants around us might survive too and grow as well. That's what I understand Jesus to be saying here, is that the good seed is to grow into good plants that will continue to grow and be harvested eventually. And God at some point in time will deal with evil the way that evil needs to be dealt with. There are a couple of phrases that have hit my week just in their own little way. There's a phrase that we get, I don't remember which book it comes from now, but as best as you can, live peaceably with everybody. And that even means living peaceably, doing our best to live peaceably where evil may be existing. It's not our role. You notice in this passage, Jesus doesn't say it's the role of good to turn and try and destroy the evil plants. Did you hear that? Because I know many Christians think our mission statement is to try and see and name and destroy evil. And we get all this imagery that's just violence against violence. That's not on. That's not the Jesus way. The Jesus way is to try and live peaceably with everybody, live graciously with everybody, accept that people are different, accept that things are different, and just do our best to continue to be good and to act for good in the face of evil. But live peaceably. Don't live with this sense that that everything on earth is just an opportunity for an argument. Find kind words rather than evil ones, than hurtful ones. Whether it's in real life or online or wherever, let your words be good words, hopeful words. Sometimes they need to call out where things aren't right. Okay, do it. But do so in a way that holds grace and peace. The other one that came to me this week is our our line from that I'll send you out with. Oh no, Loreen will send you out. Thank you for leading today, Loreen. That Loreen will send you out with. It's part of our benediction. Render to no one evil for evil. It's not our role to take on evil to try and ruin evil. What we hold is the hope that love will at least diminish evil to some extent in the world around us. It will stop evil from having a place to flourish if we choose love. Ultimately, today's parable is about patience. It's about humility. It's about trust. Trusting that God will act as God will act. And that's God's job to do so. It's not my job to try and be God. It's God's job. Frankly, I don't think the pay's enough for God. God's pay's not enough for me to try and be God. It's about perseverance. It's about remaining strong and strengthening those around you for God's work of good in our world. And that's ultimately our trust that eventually, somehow, at some point, some way, sometimes it's the little wins, one by one along the way. But our hope is that good wins, love wins. Sometimes the answer to that is eventually. Thanks be to God.